Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Tarek and I'm going to be doing what might be the most insane video in like the last month or so. That is because a brand new game, Embers of Mana, is out, and it is a full conversion of Final Fantasy Adventure, the Game Boy game, which is basically the first game in the Mana franchise before you got to Secret of Mana. The developer on this, OK Impala, has taken apart everything, put in new graphics, new story, new music to create a brand new Game Boy game in the RPG genre, which had it come out back in the day would have straight up, in my opinion, scored perfect scores, 10 out of 10s across the board. So if you love a good JRPG, if you love a good 8-bit adventure, if you love the Mana franchise, and you absolutely owe it to yourself to play this one, because the amount of love and work that's gone into it apparently took over 4 years, and you can see in every pixel and every story beat that the developer absolutely loved doing this and absolutely nailed it. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. Now before we talk about the graphics, the story, the mechanics and systems, and everything else including soundtrack that went into Embers of Mana, we have to talk about the fact that this game feels like something that would have come out of Square's actual development house back in the day, where dozens upon dozens of people would have been working on making this game, versus one person just basically thinking to themselves, I can make a new entry in the Mana franchise, and I can do every bit as good, if maybe even better, than Final Fantasy Adventure. And that's the weird thing about naming conventions, especially with Square back in the day. They would change names, they would change numbers, or release stuff in North America, and back then you would have no idea it happened, but now we know a lot more about the lineage of all of these games. And from the menu system here to everything else you can play around with and collect and use, this thing is absolutely like Mariana's Trench Deep when it comes to mechanics and story. And that again is just so absolutely insane to me that someone could basically make a game that felt better than a retail game from back in the day and do it themselves. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me, did you play Final Adventure back in the day or not, and what did you think? So right off the top, let's talk about the overall graphics and layout of the world. I will say here, you can of course pick your own color palette as the way this is being captured, but every single sprite, every single pixel here, all of the animations are just so lushly done. It really does seem like there's an entire team of people behind this, and all of the different animations, all of the different fades, how the text comes up 100% works for me. And even though I don't want to really spoil the story for you here, and I am cutting bits and pieces out so it doesn't make sense contextually, I will say this thing is absolutely excellently written and holds up to any other Mana entry out there. But you tell me down below what your favorite Mana game is. I'm sure I'm going to hear a decent amount of answers for that one. But that is something. You might be the most talented developer in the world, you might be great with sprite graphics and backgrounds, but you might or might not be a writer. So OK Impala here, you get a huge amount of credit for writing a story that's engrossing and really makes you want to play the game, because that is something, that is why professional dev teams have different departments. The people doing the coding, the people doing the art more often than not are not writing the game's storyline. Those are writers that they have in-house, at least these days, as people whose specific job is to just write the story and overall vibe of the world. So to be able to fire on all cylinders with something like this as a one-man team, it is just straight up magic. And the fun part is, this is just such a great aesthetic. 8-bit JRPGs have always been one of my favorite genres just because they feel both like massive games as well as more bite-sized games at the same time. And this is something that you can play on real hardware, you can play on Mr. FPJ, you can kind of play it however you want, including software emulation. The only wrong way to play Embers of Mana is not to play it whatsoever if you're even remotely interested in the franchise or JRPGs, because this is the special type of release that we don't see that often. And don't get me wrong, we get a lot of new games, we get a lot of ROM hacks, and I love each and every one of them, but the amount of work and love that went into something like Embers of Mana, that definitely feels special, and it's definitely something I wanted to talk about, even though I know these kind of 8-bit games never really do great views on the channel, because some things are just so incredibly good, they deserve a spotlight from everyone that will give it to them. But you tell me down below, so far the vibes you're seeing here, the graphics, the gameplay, what are you thinking about this? Because I am curious, because sometimes my take on things is different than other people's. I always love hearing. But speaking of the brand new soundtrack, here's your first soundtrack sample, and I'll be right back with more. Now, I personally feel like the music on offer here gives you a really good vibe and kind of ties the visuals and story of the game to its overall audioscape. And it's one of those things, chiptunes are not easy to make, or at least that would be my assumption talking to other people, because I always love to say the Game Boy is able to make 3 distinct sounds: beep, boop, and bop. Now, I understand that isn't the truth, but the point is, in the modern era, if you're making a game and you want to make your own music, you have an absolutely massive tool set, every instrument in the world, and you can make something that sounds like a professional recording that could go out and win a Grammy. When you're dealing with Game Boy hardware, you have a very limited set of things you can do, so you really have to be creative to get the music you want out of the hardware sounding correct and being a tonal fit for the actual game. So it's kind of like hard mode, but it's one of those things. Talented developers and talented musicians can do that because they know how to use the hardware to its advantage. It's kind of like how I tell my college film students, it doesn't matter if I hand you a $50,000 cinema camera, if you don't know how to use it and you don't know what you're doing with it, you are not going to get a result out of it that's going to be worth watching. Or if you hand a professional cinematographer an iPhone from 4 years ago and just say, go make me a 3-minute piece, you're going to get something after editing in color that looks like 90% as professional as something you would see in the theaters. It's all about how you use your tools to your advantage and how you actually understand those tools and your craft. So the music here, as well as the graphics, you can clearly tell the people involved knew exactly what they were doing and use the tool set to their advantage and use those limitations that actually work well for them. Because sometimes limitations are a good thing. Even if I have a professional cinema camera that I shoot all the shots for the channel on, as well as my normal work, sometimes being handed a tool that is old and has limitations actually makes you more creative. And in the instance of Embers of Mana here, having to work within the constraints of an 8-bit Game Boy game, its color palette, its chips, and everything else, those limitations actually end up making something that in my opinion is outstanding. Because I know I am very optimistic on this channel, and I always say things are really good to incredible, but this really is the exception to that rule. Not being hyperbolic in any way, shape, or form, at least in my opinion, this is one of the most special things you're going to play in 2026, and it is only February. And I know I've talked a lot about the vibes of this game and just the effort on display here, but of course the gameplay mechanics are sound as well. It's got classic JRPG battles, it's got all of the different subsystems and items you're going to have to deal with, and it has an absolutely amazing map. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. The map structure, the layout, how you traverse the land and uncover different story beats and elements, it is so smoothly put together. This is one of my favorite 8-bit JRPG maps I've ever played on, and I can't stress enough, this is just going to be something that hits for you if you like this genre, and even the actual battles here, being real time is a fun time. But one more soundtrack sample, 35 seconds or so, and come back. I'll tell you how you can play the game today, and I'll try to explain one more time why you're absolutely missing out if you don't play it. You can just absolutely hear the drama in that soundtrack, even if again you're dealing with the Game Boy sound hardware, which was not impressive even when the Game Boy came out, because Nintendo has always had a habit of selling underpowered hardware with some really good games on it to basically have people pay a lot for a little in good and bad ways. So the fact that you can hear all that drama and all that intonation in something like that soundtrack, and it is a fan game, straight up amazing. And the nice thing is, of course, because it's just a fan game, it isn't for profit. Someone spent 4 years of their life trying to make this for everyone for the princely sum of they're not going to make a dime on this one. So take it from me, you have to play Embers of Mana if you love the Mana series, and if you love a good 8-bit JRPG. So if you want to play this one, in the description down below there is the link to the patch. You'll definitely have to bring your legally owned game and patch it up yourself, but it doesn't take more than like 30 seconds to do that. But play Embers of Mana, it is absolutely amazing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.